reconnected now. I'm not sure that it's internet issues on my end. I don't see anything wrong on my end. I think that this is actually Restream. Um, I have been wanting to get off Restream for a while. It's one of the flakiest services I've ever seen. So I'll move over to one of the slightly more professional options at some point. Let me just confirm that we are live again. Yes, I appear to be live again. Yeah. I can't, when it goes down, I just can't see anything wrong with my internet. Uh, OBS is complaining um, that the RTMP session's gone down. So I think that Restream is actually just having issues today, which is really frustrating. Okay. So I've got, problem is every time it goes down, I completely forget what I was working on. Yes, there is a path through this code where it might not log an error. So what I should be doing, I should be logging that up there. All I'm trying to do is make sure that I've configured my network correctly. Okay, let's give this a spin. Stop it, rerun it. Now I said while I was doing some back-end work, I was going to restart Unity as well, in the hope that it would properly save its caches. Okay. And hopefully not take quite so long to spin up each time I spin it up. Okay, those errors are expected because of the way I have the session service configured at the moment. But if I come in here like this, configuring the message handler, it has bound on the UDP socket. What happened? I think that it's an issue with Restream. And I keep on saying I'll get off Restream. And yeah, after today, I think it's worth me putting the effort into getting. I can't remember what the competitor's called. I can't remember if it's Elements or Streamlabs. One of them has uh, a much more reliable option. It's paid, but it's not a huge amount. Worth it for not having to sit there reconnecting my streams all the time. Okay. The good news, random guy, is if you, I don't know if you have access to Twitch, but if you're on Twitch, you don't have to connect to the new stream every time it comes down. Twitch, it'll just automatically, I believe, reconnect when I go live again. All right. I've got this set up. Now if I send a UDP packet, but I still don't see the log message. Very frustrating. I believe that it's Restream who handles my RTMP traffic, so they're the ones that push the data from OBS into both YouTube and Twitch. I believe they've got an issue that's just causing them to drop my connection. So I've checked my internet connection each time it's gone down, and there's nothing wrong. I've restarted OBS, so I don't think it's OBS crashing either. Last week I had a stream go down. That was my internet connection going down, but That was different. Okay. So I just don't know how to debug this from here. I'm in host mode. This claims that that it is listening on that port. I mean, if I run a, oh, there's no, where's my session service? Oh, they're meant to be underscores, aren't they? No? Oh, this is a very clicky keyboard, is it? Yeah, I'll keep an eye on. Yeah, not much I can do about that actually. Yeah, sorry. I've lifted my microphone slightly. I'll move my keyboard away a little bit. Oh, your keyboard, yes. A lot of developers love their clicky clacky keyboards. Okay. Um, what's my service called? Services session 1. Oh, exec. Docker exec. Oh, there we go. Do I have NC on here? I do. So I'm on the session service at the moment with a command line directly on that Docker host, Docker container, sorry. So I should be able to do that. And still, it doesn't see it. Very frustrating. Let me try a different port. I don't know, 9999. Oh, it's listening on that port. Nope. I'm running out of ideas here. I may have to take a 5-minute coffee break in a moment. Caffeine would help. Um, all right. What about... So perhaps the socket is, for some reason, closing or something like that. Uh, so maybe I can try setting up an event handler for, I don't know, let's do a close. Wow, I'm loving Copilot. And let's also do a socket on error, like that. I don't know how I lived without Copilot. I'm still on the trial, um, but at $100 a year, it seems quite reasonable. Start. Doesn't seem to be coming down. Ah. Nice one, random go. I am an absolute loss here. The thing is, I did have UDP working before this refactor. Now, I did have to do this dodgy hack to get it working before, which is to set ourselves into host network mode. Don't expose a port, don't need to. Um, okay, so what about if I roll back all of these changes? Come back to here, stop this. I will need to bring down full stack because nothing makes sense now. Can I delete them as well? Stop and remove containers. Excellent. All right. Now if I start this up, this is back to where UDP is actually being processed by the UDP transmitter and receiver. So if we look at the configuration here, we've got the UDP receiver is in host network mode. We don't expose any ports. UDP receiver is listening on port 15540. One five five four zero. Now if I type testing in here, we quite rightly get an error saying that it couldn't parse the packet. So all we're doing is saying network mode is host. We don't configure any ports. And then inside the UDP receiver, it creates a socket like that. And then it listens on that socket. Ah, Why is this promise? No, I don't think that could possibly explain the issue. I am going to bring that code in there. Oh, that's just so that I can do this asynchronously. But it does make me suspicious that when I do the bind, well, we are getting this log message. We do then relinquish control. Not that that should matter. All right. Stop that. Wait, what's this doing? Uh, Doing wrong here. Oh, it's called main now. Yes. All right. So Unity Receiver no longer does any of that work. It's all done by the session service now. Big as the socket. Spin this up. Confirm that it's still not working. I mean, if this is suddenly working, I'm going to be pretty annoyed, I've got to say. Oh, hang on, no, stop this. I don't state anything's in. Docker compose down. Spin that up again. I don't know. It's not even a matter of the... This has to be a issue in my TypeScript. I think I can prove that. If in the session service, so in the session service, if I turn off host mode and don't expose any ports, that's all fine. Then I restart everything. Then what I should be able to do is connect to the session service. So there's no reason that shouldn't work because this isn't a network configuration thing. The difference in the log messages is because now it is on the correct network. All right. So with that said, what I'm going to try, I'm going to have to do this off screen because I don't want to expose some credentials. Give me a moment. Two-factor authentication. Just rather than swapping between versions of the code in my console, I'm just going to bring up a web view from my Bitbucket account. Two-factor authentication for Atlassian. Go. Um, find my repository. Repositories. I can bring this window across now without doxing myself. Okay. So got UDP RX source. X is fine. And then I've got this listener class. So I think what I need to do is move to something similar to listener. I'll call it a UDP server though. And then I just need to make sure that the instance of this is being passed between the two. Hello, welcome back, Junus. I just need to make sure that this is being passed, the instance of this is being passed to the two cases that need it. Uh, so one is fully internal. Second, let me just get in here and work through this code. So inside index, this is currently calling configure socket, whereas the old code was calling creating a new instance and then asking it to listen. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that, but rather than init, I'm going to call this initialize UDP server. I don't want to pass it an instance there anymore. I'm going to call this a UDP server. And all right, UDP server. Then I need to create this UDP server class. I think I might just rename this thing to be UDP server since most of the code is going to be from here. But then what I need to do, I need to grab my old listener implementation. Don't need a datagram receiver. All the way down to the bottom of here. Paste that in. UDP server. UDP server. Now, what was socket before? Socket was oh yeah, that's all kind of built in. Ah, no, that was wrong. It to be dgram. There we go. Scared from your end game. If you're making a horror game, then that's what you want. If you're not making a horror game, then that's a bad sign. I don't store the receiver. Don't store that. That's all good. This I decided would be config.udp.protocol. Datagram and remote. Okay. Oh wow, look at Copilot go. Uh, why doesn't it like that? Fun name. Datagram. What's my actual thing called? It is process datagram. Well, no, I prefer its name. Okay. That, rename these. When looking at this code, I can see one path that could have been an issue before. If our bind was failing, um, does it ever pass an error through in here? No. Okay, so I doubt that's it. I was thinking maybe it was calling at my callback, thinking that it was calling an error handler. Regardless, this code here is a lot more robust and is more likely to report any errors that come in. All right. So we've got 5 people on Twitch at the moment. That's doing pretty well for Twitch. I suppose it probably helps having my YouTube stream be so unreliable today. Okay. This is mostly looking good. We also need a transmit. Yeah, I want to get rid of all my exports. Oh no, we need this export. I want to get rid of that one. So yeah, let's have a transmit, which is gonna on Earth. It's suggesting. Oh, okay, yeah, it wants to do more code than I want. So no, I don't want that. I really just want to do transmit datagram. We do need a session ID. And a datagram. How's the progress going? A bit slow today. It's I've run into a very strange issue getting UDP packets into Docker containers, which I didn't have before. So I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but that's why I'm just trying to copy some code from the working service that I did have working UDP on, and then just see where I can go from there. Okay, so this should be straightforward. DP server, DP server. Don't need process datagram anymore. So the next issue I have is that Express itself, the Express configuration is going to be dependent on this. That shouldn't be there. That should be in UDP. It's going to be dependent on this server here. So and the reason for that is the sessions router needs to pass through. Well, it needs to be able to transmit UDP packets. So I'll just do that as a to-do for now. That needs to be done ASAP. Well, we can't send packets unless we're sending them out the correct port. Work out how to make sure that UDP packets to the client. Yeah, mine's a really strange issue. It's I've not had. I can't even get it to listen on the UDP socket, which the UDP receiver was before. So I have no idea what is going wrong there. All right. So the correct way to do this is for me to make sure that configure runs before configure express, which seems fair. In fact, I'll even just bring that up there so that it's a bit clearer. I can't imagine a situation where you'd want it round the other way. And I probably just need this to be able to return some sort of a context and have that context passed into this function. That way, rather than just passing sessions router here, I can make this one a function that can accept that context and then configure itself to call it. You know, when we do a transmit just here, it shouldn't be doing transmit datagram here. In fact, this probably doesn't even work. No, it doesn't, because we don't expose that. This won't run. Simple workaround for now is just to allow that to be exported again. Let's just do export on there. And I think this will work. And it just proved it again that UI is dealing to deal with yes. Sessions route, it doesn't like that because the server. All right, let's just try this. And then I will likely take a little 5-minute break. I've been saying I would for a little bit. Well, for about an hour, I think. Oh, right. So this is now listening on, all right, UDP 8080, not ideal, but that won't cause any issues. I can then come to here. See if that did anything. No, it didn't. What about locally? So if I connect directly to that service, there we go. That worked. So it is now successfully listening on a port. And the reason that didn't go out will just be because I'm not exposing a port. So I have no idea what the earlier issue was. We don't need network mode, which is good. I really didn't want to use network mode. It just causes all sorts of problems. So So now I can go like 15540 8080, restart this, and I should now be able to connect locally to port 15540. It should go through to the server. Let's just try that. 15540. Unsupported datagram version. Beautiful. Okay, I would love to know what I was doing wrong. That was best part of 2 hours to still not know what I was doing wrong. But I am in a better position now. The reason is I don't have anything in host mode anymore, which means that all of my services are now sitting off on a virtual network. I had all sorts of hacky stuff in there before to handle a couple of the services not being on that same virtual network. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go grab some coffees, which will mean a 5-minute break. In the background, I will spin up Unity, because now it's time to do some testing with that. So I will be back to work out how to edit my timer. I will be back in 5 minutes. Okay, that wasn't a full 5 minutes, but I'm getting particularly fast at making coffee, I guess. So, I didn't see whether or not Unity started up fast that time, so who knows. But I should now be able to connect a client and get at least a little bit further. Whether or not we'll see any entities, I don't know. It established a session. So we don't have any entities. We've received all the local meshes. We established the session. And state of things in. Datagram version, that's all fine. Okay. So this looks like it's crashing when it receives packets from the client. Ah, yeah. This is pretty straightforward. So we are in UDP server line 33. Just some code checked against unencrypted packets coming through when we're not expecting them. So this is the listener. Let's actually put it into UDP. Okay. Have any sessions? I just do a get on the sessions endpoint. I just want to know. No, there are no sessions, so it has cleaned up after itself. That's good to know. So if I connect again to create a new session, go. So session service is receiving datagrams, but it doesn't like the port number. Wait, what? That makes sense. Received datagram for that session from that endpoint, but that same endpoint is registered. Line 141. Okay, so it's sharing remote as. Oh, okay. Remote has all this extra stuff on it. So I won't use shallow equals here. Doesn't make sense. I only want to compare uh, session.remote.address or, oh, nice one, Copilot. Built. I think 4 minutes. That's how long I like to leave my stewing. Still more errors. Input must begin with a slash on RX client. Yes, I kind of noticed this before. In my config, this is meant to have something on the end of it. So UDP RX in its router is slash RX. All right. Then I'll just check the RX client just to make sure I'm not inserting that RX myself. I am. Do that. What does an entity client do when it tries to fetch an individual ID? Yep, there we go. It just fetches the ID like that. So this is correct. No reason to do that. Pass that session ID directly. What time will I stream tomorrow? What day is tomorrow? Wednesday. Probably similar time. 10 o'clock. Maybe a bit later than that, my time. Okay, actually pouring my coffee. Yeah, so that UDP bug was a bit frustrating, really. It's I still don't know what caused it, but it seems like just rewriting that code, well, re-implementing it the way that it was implemented before, seems to just have fixed it. I mean, a fix is a fix, but nice to know what actually caused it, wouldn't it? Oh, right. I think that's fixed. So we'll send another batch of packets through. Streaming for today, I'd say maybe half an hour. Kind of depends on how much progress I'm making. I can't imagine myself knocking over lots of bugs and deciding to keep on going a bit longer, but I'll see how I go. Okay, still crashing. So what is going on here? Myself a bit more space. It still doesn't like the RX client. I don't think that restarted properly. The RX client, just throw breakpoint on there. I don't think that session ID starts with a slash. If it does, there's another bug. Session ID does not start with a slash. Restarting this client then. This which service are we talking about here? The session service. It should be restarting. Yeah, okay. This is not good enough configuration. Got one that's set up better than that. Here we go. Yeah, we want to base it on all of these things. So, yeah, do that. Restart the whole thing. Now it should actually restart the service if I change a dependent library. Yeah, the issue just there was that it hadn't restarted. I was making a change to the RX client, which is not directly inside the session service. It's inside the common module. And the session service was not configured to monitor the common directory. So give that a go. Oh, right, something is happening here. I think that I was just seeing the log messages for the terrain loading. Come up here, getting a connection refused. That is, what's it trying to talk to? Oh, I don't know. What is it trying to talk to? PDP server 288. Server 288. I'm a little bit surprised I don't have some more context here. It's coming in here. Oh, type error. Fetch failed. Fortunately, I don't have the stack that's causing the failure. Presumably, it's trying to do something with a client. Let's just grab a packet. The debugger, stop the client, and then just step through. Go, stop the client so we don't get too many more packets through. Okay, so we look up the session. Yes, we have a valid session. Don't need much detail on the logs here. Session as a key, as time that we got registered at. Do we have a remote? No, we don't have a remote. We don't care about that. Calculate the hash, validate the hash, update the remote, decode the message, message is empty. Oh, message was really empty. That's odd. So the payload was empty. Oh, this looks like an actual bug. The client sent through a completely empty payload. Which I guess I've decided it's allowed to do if it when it's just trying to establish the connection. Uh, okay, I'm going to ignore that for now. I think that this is intentional. We allow the client to. I'll need to do something with this at some point. It's not critical though. It does mean I'm going to get warnings in my log every time a client connects. I'm surprised I haven't noticed this before. But what it's then doing, so the client's sending a completely empty payload to allow it to establish the remote. It should, however, be setting an ID so that the server can acknowledge that empty packet and the client can know that the session has established. I might just look at my writer code, my Unity code, just to see how we establish that session. Form connect. Yeah, sure enough, we send a completely empty message. Wow. Now, we probably don't need to retransmit. I'd say this is my logic in doing this. I figured we don't need to retransmit this packet if it doesn't get acknowledged within a period of time. And the reason for that is after a couple of seconds, it'll assume that the connection has gone down and it'll go and rerun this code, establishing a new session, which is fine. So perhaps, yeah, in fact, I think this is actually fine because if this message doesn't make it to the other end, then the client will re-establish the session. So over in here, we actually only want to do this decoding in the event that we have seen this client before. So yeah, I'll do it just like that. That will get rid of the warning because we will literally ignore that first message. If I'll do payload length greater than 0, oh wow, how's that for good out of Copilot? It knew that this was before the handshake was complete. All right. When my trial is up, I'm definitely paying for this. Sitting there trying to work out how I was going to word that message, and Copilot did it for me. Okay. I saw a video recently about AI and, well, specifically about GPT, OpenAI's other products. And the conclusion they came to in it was that if you're not using an AI assistant, then you're not as you're not developing as effectively as you could be. I'm starting to come around to that position. All right. Let's give this a try. I can see I've got, oh, I was seeing errors coming through. A session endpoint. Okay, something's gotten into a bad state. So I'm going to bring the stack down. Bring it back up in the debugger. This time I'll breakpoint all the way down here. It means that we'll only hit this breakpoint on the second message to come through. Disconnect the client so we don't get any spurious breakpoints. We decode the message. We now have a legitimate ID and we have a single entity update, which is going to be a position update on the player. Okay. So this is now going to do two things. It's going to request that the message be received, and it's going to record the fact that we've seen this particular client. So I'm actually going to put, oh, I can only really debug one of these at a time, can't I? I'm going to assume that this one is pretty straightforward because it doesn't really do anything. It does update Redis. Let's ignore that for now. And instead, find where I am. This is the one that's more likely to not work. So let's step through to here. Oh, this doesn't look right. Host is going to return presumably okay, we pass the message into this endpoint. I think I meant to just return it, right? Why would I await on it? Oh, I see why I'm awaiting on it. Because I'm trying to parse out the body. Yeah, so that is correct. Just going to copy that JSON out. We'll pop that in here. So there is the data I'm trying to pass to the receiver service. And I'm trying to pass it on. How do I get session ID? Control C. Got a fly buzzing around me. Good old Australian summers. All right, so if this doesn't work, I've got all the information I need here to reproduce this issue. No idea if that worked. Oh, well, let's just connect directly. Curl minus D minus content type JSON the API service, and we are going to connect off to RX. Oh, have I exposed RX? Probably haven't. No, I've not exposed RX. Upstream RX. WPRX port 8080. Wow, that's actually correct. I think. Start the API service. Okay, so we should be able to just call /rx session ID and then pass it the payload, which is that. Bad gateway, this is coming out of it's coming out of Nginx. EPRX will have a configuration. Oh, I'm still running it on that port. Oh, that's probably my issue. Why is really frustrating me. Had to get itself thwarted. All right. So yeah, that should have been port 8080. UDP TX probably got the same issue. Yep. So I don't even know what I need to restart here. So I just need to restart the. I need to start that and the receiver service. Start them. Time. Start that. Start that. Now listening on port 8080. The session service, how was it told to connect to RX? Yep, port 8080. So if I repeat that command again, all right, it gets through, but we get a 500. It's a much easier way of debugging than hitting up the actual client. Start spamming packets out. This way we can send one valid packet at a time. UDP RX, here we go. Yes, this makes sense. It's trying to interpret trying to do conversions between protobuf and JSON, which it shouldn't be doing. We've already done that conversion for it, I believe. So, and it might need to do some conversion. If I look at the JSON here, we've got all the IDs and things. Might need to interpret this, for example, as a long. I hope this hasn't just become more complicated. Okay. Receive a route. It calls receive. It's not. Oh, it's trying to call into the entity client. Ah, yes. Okay. This is expecting a protobuf array pass through. That really just doesn't make sense. I have no idea if that just restarted. Yes, that has not been properly set up. Let's do that while we're here. Do this on every service. That one's fine. UDP package.json. On the UDP services, already good on the ticker. Rain service. It's fine. Fine. A recipe service. There's no such thing as a recipe service anymore. I don't know what the story is there. I'll leave that directory for now. I've apparently got mission problems on it. That one looks fine. Entity service. Great. And then I don't care about the other ones. Okay. Shut it down. Spin it back up again. Now services should start when I want them to. I just lose something? No. No. Although Restream is having some serious issues. It looks like, yeah, it looks like it's just lost a connection to the chat relay or something. Yeah, clearly something's very, very wrong with Restream today. So it might take me a moment to see people's chat messages. I'll just try having the Twitch chat open. That way I will see anything that comes in. I have no idea if I'll see YouTube chat is any problem. Right, let me just slightly rejig things. But that YouTube chat as well. Yeah, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I need to get rid of Restream. 10, 5. Stream. I don't need to have other windows open. There we go. I can now see all the chat without relying on Restream. It's going to send a message from YouTube account. Yeah, so that's coming up in YouTube, but not in Twitch. And over in Twitch, oh no, it finally caught up. There you go. All right. Very, very, very flaky product. Okay. This is running services, UDP receiver, send a packet through, don't connect. Why not? Oh, that's not running. Why is that one not running? Very strange. All right. Now, it still seems to be calling same code. Entity client line 67. Client 67. Yep. Itself. Oh, yeah, we can't do that. I think I want that ID equals state.entity ID or something. Restart the service. It did. Excellent. Resend the packet. And there we go. That did something. I'm surprised that sent stuff back. I don't want it doing that. That seems to be sending back the session information, which it should not be doing. That's going to be in UDP receiver router. Yeah. This should be accepted and send. Just like that. Okay, now when we send in an update, it just sends back an empty accepted response. Exactly what I want. Okay. Next, we get the proper client going, run it, and we still don't have entities. And in fact, I've got errors all over the place. Bad gateway. Presumably, lots of errors in here. Connection failed for posting a session. Session service is there. Flash sessions, that looks fine. Session service is being very crashed. I think something came up in a very strange state last time I restarted. That is looking a lot better. I'm... Oh, I see. Something... Did I actually bring it down and not restart it? That could explain... Yeah, I think I manually started a couple of services, and so I didn't have the full cluster up. Hey, it's trying to do something. What's the transmitter doing? It's, nothing. Don't have session data or remote endpoint for that session. All right, I'm just going to bring it down. Got all these stale sessions. Still have a to-do to fix that. Bring it up. Okay, that looks much better. Something's really broken. Connection refused. Next to the chunk looter. Okay. Okay. I see what's happening. I think I made a comment about this. Yeah, here's the comment. Depends on pretty much everything. Uh, it does depend on, well, everything in the Nginx configuration file. So we depend on the session service. So let's do that. We depend on entity service. So the issue here is that it wasn't spinning up the API service because we were referring to host names that hadn't been created yet. So it was spinning up, I think, what the terrain service, seeing that the terrain service had booted, and then bringing up Nginx, but then couldn't process these parts of the configuration. So I've got session, entities, chunks we already handle, paths we already handle. We need Rx, BP Rx. It's like everything. So if we spin this up again, happy. Something wrong with my file. Error running sessions. T. Oh, breaking all sorts of records for myself in Twitch today. Seven people watching. Welcome to whoever's joined just recently. Not going to be streaming a huge amount longer today. Yes, UDP RX, a way of checking its health check. That's pretty straightforward. We just need to tell it to try connecting to itself. Do that. Well, let's just try it. All of my services expose this manage health endpoint locally. All right, transmitter's unhappy. Why? Trying to connect to something. Oh, okay. The UDP transmitter, find it, depends on the session service. Okay, that's already got a dependency in there. Um, I'm going to ignore that until I see it again. Obviously it's trying to communicate with something. So yeah, I'll ignore that. Yeah, I wonder if it's seeing one of the instances come up and then trying to connect to the other one or something. Wouldn't be ideal, but okay. Connect this client. All right. This is getting a lot further now. We're still not seeing any entities coming through in here, but we're not getting errors there. Getting lots of errors over in the server. And this is while it's trying to process the packets from client. The session service is failing when it tries to hand off the UDP packet. That is to be expected. And we're trying to send the update still through to entity client. All right, let's get debug session in here. EPRX. Stop everything. Spin up a debugger. And then I'll try catching a packet coming through and just see what's going wrong here. I presume updates is not an array, I guess. Stopped communicating. Oh. Okay, updates is undefined. That's not what I was expecting. So our request.body is a message. Oh, it contains a message. All right. Yes, that's because I have to include. I was thinking of including other parameters in there. To be fine. That should be enough to cause that to reload. Now when I connect the client, still not there. It's doing a lot better though. No, something has gone down. Let's bring everything down, get back up again so everything's in a known state. Starting to get pretty hungry here, so I will have to finish up the stream pretty soon. I'd love to get this processing all the packets properly, though. Getting the entity updates out to the client again. I feel like I'm that close. Okay. Connect. Got a session. Unexpected end of JSON on UDP server 173. 173. Steve message. Yes. I can get rid of these now because we don't actually receive any data from the client. So we can just fire this off and forget about it. If we come back to here, yeah, we will wait for that promise to evaluate. So it'll wait for that to actually go out and for the sighting to be recorded. All right. Now what's happening? Hey, we had a session go bad. That's to be expected. All right. A session service doing here? It wants to transmit some data. Oh, this is so close. So we're getting a packet from the transmitter. Transmitter's not logging, which is a bit surprising. I don't know why the transmitter isn't logging anything. I might not have put any logging in, I guess. But the session service is complaining it doesn't have any remote endpoint data. Now, if I get the list of sessions, drop that into editor. None of these have any remote session information. That is a very sexy editor, Yarita. I just wish it would handle pasting a TypeScript. Hint, hint. For anyone wondering, Yarita is the author of this tool just here. I'm helping him out test. Okay. That makes complete sense. So the issue here, I suspect, is we no longer store as much information in Redis. There's no need to store any of the transient data, like well, pretty much any of this stuff doesn't really need to be stored in. Sorry, the exception here is invalidation. So we need to store the session ID, the invalidation acts, and a bit about game state should be stored in here. But you know that, well, last client ID scene does need to be stored, but we don't need to store the remote information because that's managed internally by the session service. Why is this changed color? No. The session service can store that remote host information as long as we can guarantee that the UDP transmitter always communicates back to the same session service. That may well be part of what the issue is here. How many session services do I have? Top, isn't it? RxTX session. Yeah, we only have the one of those at the moment. So that's not the issue. So I guess I just need to find this line of code and hopefully it is pulling that, it's trying to pull that data from the persistent session store rather than the in-memory. So UDP, oh, I already had it selected. Server. IntelliJ search seems really slow at the moment. I wonder if I need to invalidate my caches. Okay. Line number 4. So that looks legitimate. It's grabbing the session ID. I think I just want to throw a breakpoint in here. Just make sure that this session ID makes sense. Oh, it's definitely right because I log that. So that's a sensible session ID. But it doesn't have a remote on it. Now, it's the responsibility of receive datagram to make sure that's configured. Oh, I see. Session. Bit confused here. This might just be a Martin JavaScript failure, but I thought this was going to update in place. Let's get rid of that so I can get a bit more on the screen. In here, it's setting session to be an item in this dictionary, this object. Later on, we then update remote to be that. Now, I was under the impression that session referred back to the original object in the original array. So let's just run node. I don't know, to make that an empty object. B is equal to A2. B dot mote. I don't know, just put in any old object in there. See, that's what I was expecting to happen. It has indeed written that back out into the original array. The original object, sorry. So why is that not happening? In here, or are we never coming in here for some reason? This is going to be easier to debug. I change the sessions controller to write out the internal state as well. Fetch all, there it is. So fetch all pulls them out of Redis. export get local sessions. Uh, it's almost what I want. No, I don't want to map it. I want to reduce it. And is this what I want? Okay, Copilot is absolutely incredible. Because I believe it has this code completely right. Oh, no, I can actually simplify this. How about I just return this UDP session data? I thought UDP session data was an array, but no, I think I can just return UDP session data. It was still kind of cool that it knew to write an accumulator like that. It's the way that I'd normally do later in that instance, in that under those circumstances. Okay, so this normally just returns the sessions, but I want to return the sessions combined with the local session. Fair enough. I'm just trying to combine data from the persistent sessions and the in-memory representation of the sessions. So yeah, let's go session.that. I think that'll work. I'll bring everything down because I've now got stale sessions and things. Okay, we are up and running. So if I hit up the sessions endpoint, we should just get an empty set. Oh, oh, do I have a client running? I do have a client running. And this does have a remote. This is going to turn out to be something so silly, isn't it? Close that connection. Spin up a new one. Got a new session ending in 5.2. Are we sending packets? I don't know if we're sending packets with no content in them or if something's getting swallowed along the way. Uh, okay, so UDP TX. UDP TX. All right, it's just respun up. Found undefined sessions. All right, well, that would suggest that it's not working. What is sessions is going to be a dictionary. Let's do. Sessions dot length. Okay. Found 2 sessions to send messages for. Okay. Then the session service is again claiming it doesn't have data for the endpoint. So we've got 3A and 85. Oh, well, this may well be true, right? Because if it's restarted our service, if Docker has restarted the service, then I expect no remote data because that's all stored in memory. I expect all the sessions to get invalidated at that point. So now when I start up, I should get 3 sessions. And one of them should have a remote. So let's just grab this. Okay, a couple of them have remotes, but that's okay. Okay, this is actually behaving as expected. These warnings are caused by the fact that I pointed this out on Friday. They're caused by the fact that I'm getting orphaned sessions whenever my session services restart. So what I need now is just a log message when we transmit data. So can I put a callback on this? Yes, I can. I love Copilot. Like it just wrote that entire handler for me. Okay. Now the other thing I'm going to do, other than fix this little typo, ah, the other thing I can do is partly fix the orphaned sessions by at least cleaning up sessions once the UDP transmitter tries to transmit something to them. In fact, this may even be the correct solution. It's a little bit of a waste of processing power because it is relatively expensive to generate packets. But if we just have to generate a single packet and have the system clean up, then that is fine. So what I'm going to do is in the session service, when it receives one of these packets that it does not have a remote for, happen. Has to be somewhere in here. This is when it's receiving. I want the transmit. Don't have session data or remote endpoint for that. There is no situation where the UDP transmitter should contact the wrong session service. Well, I haven't implemented the code to actually make sure it calls the right one. Once that's implemented, if a packet gets to the wrong session service, we should just assume that that session is now dead. And so what I can do in here is we can actually delete the session like that. I think that solves the whole orphaned session problem. Because if we do restart the stack, yes, all the sessions will be orphaned, but then the UDP transmitter will try to generate packets to them. They'll get to the session service. It will realize that it doesn't have enough information to communicate with them. And then it will just drop those persistent sessions. Then after however long we've configured it for, the timeouts, the client will then reconnect after that timeout, and then we'll get fresh sessions. I think this is perfect. I thought that was going to be a much harder problem to solve. Now, I do still have the issue that if I have multiple instances of the session service, I need to make sure that the transmitter connects to the correct one. And it'll do that by storing the IP address on the actual persistent session. Okay, let's try this. Stop it, restart it once that's come down. Or that the client is down. So what we'll see is the UDP transmitter, once it comes up, here it is coming up, oh, and it's already cleaned up. Transmitter, transmitter. Used as to how that came good so fast, but I'm not going to complain. So, the last remaining question is, where are these packets actually going? If the server claims that it is processing these packets, and we can see, yep, we've got a session. Yes, it is transmitting that data. It's transmitting empty packets. So my next question is, are the packets getting through to the client? Perform connect, update. Really needs a refactor. I can never remember. Here it is. I was in the right class. Excellent. So when we receive a packet, it's going to come in here. Let's just attach the debugger to Unity. Make sure we're receiving these empty packets. Then I've only got one outstanding bug. Um, yeah, I don't think that packet is making it back out. Oh, yes, it is. There we go. Nope, that is a new session being established. Okay. I'm definitely going to have to finish up here. Otherwise, I am, yeah, because I really need to eat. Um, so yeah, I'll hopefully get a chance to look into that before the next stream. Next stream I have planned for tomorrow at about 10 a.m. Australian time, maybe a bit after that, so about 11 p.m. UTC, or maybe as late as midnight UTC. Until then, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you all next time.